I struggled with my LGBTQ plus identity behind closed doors. I remember I had a lot of suicidal thoughts and feelings at a young age. After I came out, after I built that courage, after I felt safe enough to come out, I saw my world change.
Very excited today that we have Juan Acosta joining us. Juan, please give us a little introduction. Tell us a bit more about yourself, and we'll get into some questions.
Of course, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm Juan Acosta. My pronouns are he, him. I am a mental health advocate and speaker. I've been doing advocacy work since age 13, particularly in the LGBTQ plus community and the Latin community. I have collaborated with numerous organizations and recently spoke at the White House with the First Lady, Selena Gomez, and the U.S. Surgeon General.
Wow, that is really impressive. Thank you for all you do for the mental health, um, for mental health advocacy, and for the LGBTQ plus community. So let's get into this. We know that for many reasons, access to mental health treatment for queer and trans people and people of color can be challenging. What advice do you have for young people who may be struggling to find providers that align with their identities?
I would encourage them to continue looking because there is, and I know it's sometimes easy to get overwhelmed or frustrated with how long it can take. But I would say just really go through the process and find someone who's right for you. But in addition to that, tap into your own community. There's sometimes peer support groups that may be really of support to you, that have people that may look like you, that may have gone through things similar to the things that you're going through. So I would say tap into some of those LGBTQ plus resources as well.
For sure. And what really helped me when I was finding a new therapist, I went on psychologytoday.com, and you can actually specify that they're in the LGBTQ plus community, and or make sure that they are comfortable speaking with people who identify as queer or in the community. And my therapist isn't queer, but we connect. But I know other people who feel like it's important, like in couples therapy, if you're in a gay relationship, might be really useful to have someone who has experience in that department, considering there are different challenges queer couples might face. And I
Definitely.
agree with you. It's so good to go to your community because you never know. Like I could go to Juan, like, hey, Juan, who's your therapist? Maybe you're enjoying them, and then I'd connect with them too. So asking our peers who are also in our communities, whether it's the BIPOC community or the LGBTQ plus community, who they're seeing and if they have any recommendations.
Yeah, and even reaching out to LGBTQ plus organizations, right? They may be able to direct you to people who do give therapy to members of the community who are also members themselves.
For sure, Trevor Project would be one of those amazing organizations who support the LGBTQ plus community that would have a ton of resources for people who identify.
100%.
Amazing, thank you. Do you have any advice for young QT, BIPOC, or Latinx people struggling with mental health who are not comfortable talking with or getting the needed support they need from family and friends?
You don't have to go to them if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel ready to talk to them. But I do think it's really important to get support somewhere. And that could look like getting help from a therapist, calling a warm line, receiving peer support in peer support groups. I believe the most important part is that you identify where you can go and who to go to, even if it's not in your immediate circle. But it's important for you to get that support and to talk about what you're feeling. I mean, what helped me when I was struggling, when I didn't talk to my parents, was that I had a chosen family. It was, now we have this digital world where we're able to connect with people that may not be near us, but that may really be able to speak to things that we're going through. And it's that chosen family, right? That we make up of people who we love and care for, that maybe not be in our immediate family, but it's someone that we identify that we can trust and be safe with.
That's really important for sure. We all, we can't choose our family, but we can choose our friends. And sometimes chosen family are really strong ties and people we can lean on, even more so than some family members. Just curious to know what was coming out like for you, and did coming out affect your mental health in any way?
Coming out definitely impacted my mental health. I believe my coming out journey was definitely not something I was ready for when it happened. For me, it was in grade school. Uh, it felt really intrusive because people were naming me as a member of the community before I was able to really recognize and state film myself. And that felt really intrusive of who I was, especially at such a young age, getting bullied and teased for being gay. And it was something that I really struggled with by myself because I, like many people, didn't feel prepared to come out and speak to my family about it. So it made me feel really anxious. It made me feel depressed going to school as well. And it's what led to a lot of my mental health struggles because I just didn't know who to talk to about what I was experiencing, especially growing up in a small town where there wasn't a lot of that LGBTQ plus representation. It's my culture as well, where there's a lot of stigma, not just in mental health, but there's also a lot of machismo and sometimes homophobia. So it was difficult. But when I did come out and started embracing who I was, I saw how my life changed as I was no longer hiding anything. I was owning my light and who I was. And it's what led me to connect with so many amazing individuals and get that support from them.
It's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. For me, I came out, well, I call it a becoming out because it happened later in life. So I feel so much compassion for people who struggled in grade school because I fortunately didn't have to go through that part of the coming out and being called out or anything like that. Although when I did become out, people were like, "I knew this whole time," so I thought that was quite funny because, like, how did you know? I didn't know. But I've experienced more homophobia and discrimination since being in a relationship with a woman, and that has been new to navigate for me. Whether it was family members between us who had homophobia or friends who didn't welcome us and said we couldn't be openly in a relationship in front of their children because they're religious. And it's been interesting kind of navigating this space as an adult and learning like all the things that I took for granted as a straight person that I didn't realize were challenges for people in the queer community until I became part of it. And so I have so much respect for people who went through that, especially in such difficult years of childhood, adolescence, where we don't really have our strong voice and that confidence to stand up for ourselves yet. And almost everything everybody says is so internalized. So thank you for being strong and fighting through that so you can be the powerful speaker you are today and help other people who are maybe right now in that position. You are an amazing mental health advocate. How did that come to be for you? And how has your mental health advocacy supported your own mental health?
Yeah, I became a mental health advocate because it was part of my survival at that point. For me, it was really not something that I talked to myself about and said, I'm going to fight. It was more so like I have to fight in order for me to get my needs met, in order for me to feel safe. I need to really use my voice in whatever way I can to try and impact some of these changes, to try and reach people who may be going through the same things that I've gone through or are currently going through. And that is why I became a mental health advocate. A lot of my advocacy work has been informed by my lived experience, by being an immigrant in this country, by being a gay man and growing up in a small town, and by leading efforts like the historic LGBTQ plus proclamation I drafted for my hometown in Woodland, California, that passed through the city council for the first time. Things that have really marked my life, in addition to the bullying I went through. I take all of this with me in whatever room I'm in now to try and change some of those things. I know that currently we're seeing a lot of things regarding the community across the nation, policies that may be impacting people. And that is why I feel like it's so important to utilize our voice, how we're doing so today, to reach those people, to try and make changes with policy in our communities and beyond, even in music.
Yes, so true. Thank you so much for all of that because you're an advocate, but you're also an activist. And I think that is so incredible, like taking that extra step of, okay, I'm going to share my lived experience, but not only that, I'm going to try to affect policy and systemic change and be part of like such a bigger picture. So thank you for that work. And for me, I became an advocate for mental health after I went through a severe crisis in 2016, where I had a depression that led to PTSD and mania and then psychosis. And I was hospitalized and diagnosed as bipolar 1, which I didn't really believe at first. But after a few episodes, I was like, okay, give me the medication. I am bipolar. I'm ready to admit it. When I got out of the hospital, all I wanted was to see one person who I can connect to who said, hey, I had psychosis and I survived and now I'm living the best life. I have a fulfilling and meaningful life, and so can you. And I just didn't see anyone talking about that. So I thought, I'm going to take that chance and be that person for someone else who, like me, might need to see someone right now.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Could you explain the 5 golden rules of how to support someone with their mental health?
Yes, I can. So the 5 golden rules, and I learned them actually from Be There, and it's a joint effort by Jack.org and Born This Way Foundation. And those 5 golden rules are: 1, to say what you see, really name what you're seeing in this person and yourself. And rule number 2 is to show that you care. Being there for someone involves you really showing intentionally that you care for the person that you're trying to support. Hear the person out is rule number 3. We know that oftentimes people just want someone to listen. Sometimes people just really need to know that there's someone there to hear them out, to be of support, and to just let them get everything they have within them out. And rule number 4 is to know your role. What is it that you need to be doing in this situation, if anything? And rule number 5 is to connect people to a resource, to that support and to help.
That's incredible. So powerful. Thanks for synthesizing that. And just if anybody's curious to learn more, definitely check out the Be There certificate at BeThereCertificate.org. I'll just say that again, at BeThereCertificate.org. As Juan mentioned, it's a joint effort with Jack.org and Born This Way Foundation, which is by Lady Gaga. And it's a really involved 2-hour workshop online that shows you how to be there for yourself and others, identify signs, and know how to best support your peers. What are some things that have positively impacted your mental health?
Talking about my mental health, both the good and the bad, I think that has been really freeing for me. It's been really liberating to just be able to talk about what I've gone through, but also the things that have been of support to me. Connecting with people who are in this space, like Ari, to really talk about things that make us feel better, our coping mechanisms, and really looking after my own mental health, being honest with myself and being self-aware, exercising, listening to music, dancing, reflecting, and meditating are things that have really positively impacted my mental health.
Incredible. It's so important to have a wide range of coping skills. Like I see it almost like a tool belt and, or like shades of colors of a rainbow. And it's like, what can I tap into today? What do I need today? Is it songwriting? Is it jogging? Or is it dance? Is it yoga? Is it socializing with a friend? Is it going to a spiritual wellness event where I do a sound bath and meditate? Is it journaling? Is it my gratitudes? This morning I woke up and I like in my head reflected on 5 gratitudes before I got out of bed. And it's just such a great way to start my day. Also, affirmations in the mirror, so many amazing things we can do for ourselves. And they only take a few minutes sometimes. And so important therapy, if we're unable to manage something on our own. And, distress tolerance and mood regulation takes tools. So we can learn those things in therapy. So important. And all we really need, aside from a therapist, is one great friend to connect to. Sometimes I think people think the more friends, the better, but sometimes it's quality over quantity. So if you have 1 or 2 friends you can really confide in, that's amazing. How has your LGBTQ plus identity affected your mental health?
My LGBTQ plus identity has affected my mental health both positively and negatively. I started struggling at a young age with getting bullied, which led me to really struggle with anxiety and depression at a young age. And that was really difficult for me because I did not want to come out yet to my parents. And I also saw my parents working a lot as immigrants in this country to put food on the table. And I thought to myself at the young age that my struggles, getting bullied in school, was nothing compared to the very real issue of putting food on the table. And seeing my parents work so hard and stressing over bills was not something that I wanted to give them more to worry about. So I struggled with my LGBTQ plus identity behind closed doors. I remember I had a lot of suicidal thoughts and feelings at a young age. But after I came out, after I built that courage, after I felt safe enough to come out, I saw my world change. I became a much more confident person. I was able to really have a stronger connection with my parents because for years I had built up walls because I felt like I had to be on the defense at all times because I was getting bullied in school and I felt like that was going to be the case with everybody. But I realized that the people who really loved me, my family, my friends, nothing changed for me with them once I came out. And I know that's not everybody's case. I know everybody has a different coming out story. But that was something that really positively impacted my mental health when I came out and I embraced who I was.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I feel like when we are able to radically accept ourselves and what we came into this world with, or became into in this lifetime, we just welcome in this like inner alignment and peace. And then that like responds positively in the outer world around us. When our inner world is at peace, our outer world becomes less chaotic. And I think it's so much more harmonious when we decide to be like, this is who I am and I'm proud. And that's easier said than done. It takes a process, but it's just such a beautiful result when we can get there.
Definitely.
May I ask you a question, if you're comfortable, about suicidal ideation?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So you mentioned you went through suicidal ideation. What was that experience like for you, and how did you combat it?
Yeah, having suicidal thoughts and feelings was really difficult because I did not know why I was feeling that way or exactly what was leading me to have these thoughts. I knew it was in part the struggles I was undergoing in school, but I didn't feel like it was a normal response to how I should be feeling. I struggled with suicidal thoughts and feelings at age 12, 13. I was in middle school. And I remember I went to my room after school and I would just go and cry into my pillow, lock my doors because I didn't want people to see or hear me cry. And it was really, really difficult. And I thankfully was able to talk myself down, to, calm myself down. But something that was of support back then to that was music. It was especially a song "Born This Way" by Lady Gaga was had just came out around that time, and it was something that really was able to reaffirm that who I was okay. And it seems like it's something so small, and it may be cliche, but sometimes all people need is to get a message of support and acceptance somewhere. For me, it was that song that reaffirmed me that who I was okay, and that made me want to stay and be myself and fight. And it's something that changed my life. But it was really difficult to have those suicidal thoughts and feelings, especially at a young age, and not know who to go to or even what mental health was. I think it's so important to realize that for many communities, especially underserved communities, we don't even know the jargon that we use with mental health. We may not even know what mental health is or looks like. It's easy for some of us to assume that everybody knows what depression is, what it looks like, but that's not the case for everybody. So it was difficult because of those reasons. And now I try and approach the work that I do with that mindset of meeting people where they're at and just really reiterating that there's resources and support out there.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
I've done a lot of things I'm proud of, but it doesn't take away that I still struggle sometimes. And we know that recovery isn't linear, but it's about, as you said,
Hmm.
tapping into those things that are really of support to us and really utilizing our toolbox to support ourselves and to talk to people when we're struggling.
For sure. Thank you for saying that. And one thing that's super important that I've learned from hearing other people speak and from therapy is when it comes to suicidal ideation, it's really important to come up with one of two or two lists. One, which are what are things I can do right now when I'm feeling suicidal? And it could be things like cook a meal or call a friend or go for a walk, like just self care tools and things that are creative and is positive for our mental health in a list. So when we feel like we're at a loss of what to do for ourselves, we have this go-to place of like, oh, these things 1 to 10 are always helpful to me and shift my mood. And then another thing is a list of reasons to live. So this could be as simple as my family, my relationship, my job, which has meaning, because I am giving back to the community. Whatever reason you can think of that you have a purpose on this earth that makes you feel connected to being part of reality, as we all are meant to be here. Whatever makes you feel connected to yourself and feel worthy, which we all are. That's important to have a list just to go to when we're having those thoughts. I think, and to put it in your wallet, or even better, put it in a phone note in your phone, so that way you have like a titled "Reasons I Choose Life," and just have it all right there at your fingertips. Because I find when I'm in my worst moments, sometimes I like forget everything, and I'm like, I forget what helps me. Or even as simple as like when I'm going through a mental health crisis, living with bipolar, what are my action items? If I'm having an episode of mania, what are my 1, 2, 3 go to action items? And that for me is contact my psychiatrist, ask to up my medications, let my family know, make sure that I know which hospital is near to me that I feel comfortable going to. And those 3 things are super important for my reactive care. And it's good to have reactive care, but we want to fortify ourselves with proactive care so we don't have to get to the crisis mode.
100%.
How can people better support the LGBTQ plus community?
People can better support the LGBTQ plus community by fostering intentional, safe spaces. And for me, that looks like doing more than putting up a poster with rainbows and butterflies that say this is a safe space, but ensuring that the space that you are hosting is actually safe for these communities, that you respect people's pronouns, that you ask people for their pronouns, that you are intentional in having resources available if needed, and that you really have those tough conversations with people around so that they are also respectful of the members of the community. In addition to that, I believe it's important to support LGBTQ plus issues and organizations year round. That could look like in your own community, advocating for the LGBTQ plus community to receive more support from local officials.
That's incredible. And I think I couldn't agree more. It's like, okay, first step, normalizing conversation. Second step is action, right? And so I think, yes, being clear that this is a safe space, but also making sure the culture has that inclusivity and support that it needs. How can we destigmatize mental health conversations in diverse cultures?
We can destigmatize mental health conversations in diverse cultures by having conversations. I think it's so important to model that behavior. And if you are someone from those diverse cultures who feels comfortable having these conversations, I encourage you to have them, to do it publicly, or to do it with your own family and your friends, because I genuinely believe it creates a ripple effect. And not only that, it's not just about these conversations, but when we have conversations, we may find out that people near and close to us from our diverse cultures may be struggling and may be so relieved to hear us talk about these things, because they may have for so much of a long time wanted to speak about it, but they didn't feel comfortable. And I think just being able to have these conversations gives that message that it's okay for them to talk about it too.
So true. When we hear other people talking about their lived experience with mental health, it just like creates this environment that says, you're safe here, you're welcome to share, I have your back, I know what you're going through, and the most importantly, you are not alone.
I think that's the only message, is to really encourage anyone struggling to get the support that they need. And whether it's in their close inner circle or a resource online. But as I said, it's really important for us to get support, especially at such a time where across the nation, we've seen so many cases and rises in mental health and suicides and more. And it's just the time to be having these conversations, but also to taking action and supporting our loved ones. If you are someone who has someone who's struggling, just reminding them that you're there for them to talk if they need it.
100%. Thank you so much, Juan.
Thank you.